My daughter came home from a sleepover with tears streaming down her face. Annie told me, I don't get a blanket. Only my cousins get the soft ones. She'd spent the whole night on the floor, freezing. I didn't fight back. I got in the car, drove to their house, and the second they opened the door, I thought I knew what family meant. I thought it meant showing up, giving everything, being the bedrock. But when my daughter came home, her little face etched with a pain number 7-year-old should ever know, I realized I'd been living a lie. And I knew in that moment, everything had to burn. You know, for years I lived by a simple, but ultimately heartbreaking rule. Being dependable isn't the same as being valued. It's a lesson I learned the hard way, probably around my 23rd birthday. That's when my younger sister, Rachel, was buying her first house. 3 days before closing, she called me, voice shaking with panic. Her down payment was short by a whopping $18,000. Dad couldn't help. His retirement fund was locked up. Mom, bless her heart, suggested I step in. Just temporarily, she said, until Rachel gets her bonus. So, like an idiot, I wired the money that same afternoon. Spoiler alert, that bonus never materialized. Or maybe it did, and it somehow morphed into the gleaming granite countertops I saw when I first visited her new place. Either way, that $18,000 ballooned to $28,000 2 years later when she refinanced and needed more help. I just signed the paperwork, without even reading it. That's what family does, right? Rachel is 3 years younger than me, and she's always been the golden child. When she graduated college, it was a cater party with a big slideshow. When I graduated, pizza in the living room. When she got engaged, Mom cried happy tears for an hour. When I got engaged years earlier, Mom just asked if I was sure I could afford a wedding. I never held it against Rachel, though. She's bubbly, charming, the kind of person who lights up a room. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the brother who showed up when things broke. And things broke a lot. I fixed her leaky faucets. I co-signed car loans. I covered emergency vet bills for her dog. Every single year, I paid her home insurance because, apparently, budgeting for annual expenses stressed her out. I even set up educational savings accounts for her 2 kids, Tyler and Ella, depositing $1,500 every single month. I wanted them to have opportunities. Rachel's husband, Tom, worked in sales, and his income was inconsistent. Some months were great. Other months, I'd get a call asking if I could cover their electric bill or buy groceries. And what was I supposed to say? No. Let my niece and nephew go hungry? So I always said yes. Always. Then there's my Sophie. My little girl is 7 years old, and she is the absolute center of my universe. After my divorce 3 years ago, Sophie's been with me full-time. Her mom moved to Seattle, calls once a month if Sophie's lucky. So I became both parents. I pack her lunches, braid her hair, read bedtime stories, volunteer at her school. Sophie is sweet, thoughtful, a little shy. She doesn't ask for much. She's happy with library books and coloring pages. Rachel's kids, on the other hand, had everything. New tablets every Christmas, vacations to Disneyland, a playroom that looked like a toy store exploded. I never minded. I wanted them to be happy, and Sophie never seemed to notice the difference. She loved her cousins. She looked up to them. 2 weeks ago, Rachel called. Could Sophie sleep over Saturday night? The kids are having a movie marathon, she said. It would be so fun. Sophie's face just lit up when I told her. She spent the entire week picking out which stuffed animal to bring, practicing how to braid Ella's hair. I drop her off Saturday afternoon. Rachel's house smelled like vanilla candles and fresh laundry. Tyler and Ella ran to the door, shouting Sophie's name. Rachel hugged Sophie, told her they were going to have the best time. I felt relieved. My little girl was going to have a normal, happy night with family. I should have known better. Sunday evening, I picked Sophie up at 6. Rachel met me at the door with a bright smile, gushing about how much fun the kids had. Sophie walked out behind her, clutching her backpack. Her eyes were red. Her face was pale. She didn't say a word the whole ride home. When we got to the apartment, I knelt in front of her and asked what was wrong. She just stared at the floor, her small hands twisting the straps of her backpack. Then she looked up at me, tears streaming down her cheeks, and whispered, "Auntie said I couldn't use a blanket. Only my cousins get the soft ones." My blood ran cold. I thought I misheard her. I asked Sophie to repeat it. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand and spoke again, even quieter this time. Auntie said the soft blankets were only for Tyler and Ella. She gave me an old towel. It was scratchy, and I had to sleep on the floor because the air mattress was for the cousins. My chest tightened, a burning knot of fury. I kept my voice calm. Where exactly did you sleep, sweetie? She described the downstairs playroom. Tile floor. She said it was so cold. She shivered all night in her thin cotton pajamas, curled up with that scratchy towel. Ella and Tyler had sleeping bags on the air mattress. Fleece blankets. Pillows with cartoon characters. Sophie had nothing. Did you tell Rachel you were cold? I asked, dread building in my gut. Sophie nodded. She said she went upstairs around midnight, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Rachel was awake, watching a show on her tablet in bed. Sophie stood at the door, begging for a blanket. Any blanket. Rachel just glanced at her. You're fine, sweetie. Go back downstairs. Sophie asked again. She was really, really cold. Rachel sighed. She said the extra blankets were in the linen closet, but they were for guests, not for kids having sleepovers. She told Sophie to go back to the playroom and try to sleep. Sophie went back to that cold tile floor and cried herself to sleep. She woke up twice because her body wouldn't stop shaking. In the morning, Rachel made pancakes for Tyler and Ella. She gave Sophie a granola bar, claiming they ran out of batter. Tyler and Ella ate at the kitchen table. Sophie ate standing by the sink. As I listened to my daughter describe her night, something inside me didn't just crack. It shattered. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't an oversight. Rachel made a choice. She chose to let my daughter freeze on a tile floor while her own children slept warm and comfortable 10 feet away. Was Tom there? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She said he was. He saw her sleeping on the floor. He walked right through the playroom to get a soda from the garage fridge. He didn't ask if she needed anything. He just stepped over her and kept walking. Sophie looked at me with those glassy, tired eyes and asked, Daddy, did I do something bad? Is that why Annie was mad at me? That question, it destroyed me. My 7-year-old daughter thought she deserved to be treated like garbage. She thought she was the problem. I pulled her into a fierce hug. You did nothing wrong, baby. You're perfect. Annie made a mistake. But I knew. It wasn't a mistake. After Sophie finally fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. I thought about calling Rachel, screaming at her. I thought about driving over there and tearing her apart. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my banking app. I scrolled through 5 years of transaction history. Mortgage loan payments, insurance payments, educational account deposits, grocery transfers, utility bailouts, emergency car repairs, vet bills, vacation funds. The numbers blurred. I added them up 3 times, just to be sure. Over 5 years, I had given Rachel's family over $200,000. The mortgage loan alone was $28,000. Insurance, $1,100 a year. Educational accounts, $18,000 a year. I had funded their life. I had given them security, comfort, and opportunity. And in return, they let my daughter sleep on a cold floor and treated her like she didn't matter. I stared at the screen until my vision went blurry. Then I opened my notes app and started typing. I made a list of every financial thread connecting me to Rachel. Every automatic payment, every standing transfer, every co-signed document. By 3 in the morning, I was done. I sat back in my chair and read the list one more time. Then I said out loud to the empty kitchen, You wanted me to be invisible. Now you will see what happens when I disappear. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, looking at that list. Every line represented a piece of my life I gave away. Every number was a sacrifice I made because I thought family meant something. I thought about the time I skipped a vacation to Yellowstone with Sophie because Rachel needed help covering Tyler's braces. I thought about the laptop I delayed buying for 2 years because Rachel's roof needed emergency repairs. I thought about the countless times I said no to Sophie's request for dance classes or art supplies because my budget was stretched thin, supporting a family that clearly saw me as a wallet and nothing more. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the crushing realization that I had been conditioned to accept this. Mom always framed it as helping out. Dad always said, that's what brothers do. Rachel always thanked me with a hug and a promise to pay me back someday. And I believed them. I believed that my role in the family was to be the safety net, the backup plan, the guy who made sure everyone else stayed comfortable. But nobody ever asked if I was comfortable. Nobody ever asked if I was okay. Nobody ever thought about what I was giving up. Then I thought about Sophie's face again, her shivering on that tile floor. Too polite to make a fuss, too sweet to demand better. My daughter inherited my tendency to stay quiet and accept less. I taught her that by example. I showed her that being kind meant letting people walk all over you. That ended tonight. I opened my email and started drafting messages. I wrote to the mortgage servicer. I wrote to the insurance company. I wrote to the educational savings platform. I wrote to the bank that held our joint emergency fund. Every email was professional, calm, and clear. I requested termination of services, closure of accounts, and revocation of automatic payments. I didn't explain why. I didn't apologize. I just stated facts and submitted requests. By 5 in the morning, I had sent 14 emails and filled out 9 online forms. I documented everything, saved confirmations, took screenshots. Then I opened a blank document and wrote a letter. It was 1 page long. I didn't accuse. I didn't yell. I simply listed every financial arrangement I had maintained for 5 years and stated that, effective immediately, all support was ending. I included a breakdown of the total amount I had contributed. I ended the letter with 1 sentence. I hope the blankets you saved were worth it. I printed it, signed it, sealed it in a plain white envelope. I stared at that envelope for a long time. Once I delivered it, there was no going back. I would be cutting off my sister and her family completely. Tyler and Ella would suffer. Mom and Dad would be furious. I would be labeled selfish, cruel, unforgiving. But then I thought about Sophie's face again. Her asking if she did something bad. Her standing at Rachel's bedroom door, shivering and begging for warmth, only to be dismissed like she didn't matter. I put the envelope in my jacket pocket and went to check on Sophie. She was asleep, finally, curled up under 3 blankets I piled on her bed. Her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. She looked peaceful. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "You will never feel that cold again." Then I went to my room, set an alarm for 8, and lay down. I didn't sleep, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Monday morning arrived, cold and gray. I woke up at 7:30, made Sophie pancakes, and drove her to school. She hugged me extra tight before running to join her friends. I watched her disappear through the doors, then sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. The envelope was still in my jacket pocket. I could feel its weight. I drove to Rachel's house. It took 20 minutes. I didn't call ahead. I didn't text. I just showed up. Tom's truck was in the driveway. Rachel's SUV was next to it. The house looked perfect from the outside. Freshly painted shutters, manicured lawn, a decorative wreath on the front door. I parked on the street and walked up the driveway. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Rachel stood there in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, holding a coffee mug. She smiled when she saw me. "Kevin, hey, what are you doing here?" I didn't return the smile. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and held it out to her. "This is for you." Her smile faltered. She set the mug on the entry table and took the envelope. "What is this?" "Read it," I said. She tore it open, unfolded the letter, and started reading. I watched her face change. Confusion first, then disbelief, then panic. Her eyes darted back and forth across the page, faster and faster. When she finished, she looked up at me, her mouth slightly open. "Kevin, what? What is this?" "It's exactly what it says. I'm done." "Done with what?" "You can't just..." She gestured at the letter, her voice rising. "You can't just stop everything. We have bills. We have commitments. The kids' accounts are not my responsibility." I cut her off. "Not anymore." Tom appeared behind her, frowning. "What's going on?" Rachel thrust the letter at him. He scanned it quickly, then looked at me with a mix of confusion and irritation. "Dude, is this a joke?" "No, you can't do this." Tom said, "We have a payment plan. We have an agreement. I never signed anything that made me legally obligated to support you forever," I said. Check your paperwork. You'll find my name on loans and cosigns, but nothing that forces me to continue paying. I am within my rights to stop. Rachel's face went pale. But why? What did we do? I stared at her. She genuinely didn't know. She truly didn't connect her treatment of Sophie to this moment. I could have explained. I could have described every gut-wrenching detail of what Sophie told me. I could have shamed her into understanding. But she didn't deserve that explanation. You know why? I said. No, I don't. Rachel's voice cracked. Kevin, please just talk to me. We can figure this out. I turned and started walking back to my car. Rachel followed me onto the driveway, still holding the letter. Kevin, wait. Please. I got in my car and closed the door. She stood there, her breath fogging in the cold air, staring at me through the window. I started the engine, put the car in gear, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing in the driveway, clutching the letter with both hands. I didn't look back. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with texts. Rachel, Tom, 3 missed calls from Mom. I silenced the phone and opened my email. Confirmation messages were already arriving. Insurance cancellation processed. Mortgage payment authorization revoked. Educational account deposits terminated. It was happening. The cascade had begun. By Monday evening, the calls had multiplied. My phone showed 23 missed calls, 15 texts, 2 voicemails. I ignored all of them. I focused on Sophie. We made spaghetti together. She told me about her day at school. She laughed at a joke her friend told. She seemed lighter, like a weight had lifted. Around 8, someone pounded on my apartment door. Hard, loud, urgent. I checked the peephole. Rachel. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail. She knocked again, harder. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. What do you want? I want to talk, she said, her voice tight. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? I asked. She hesitated, glancing past me into the apartment. Can I come in? No. Her face crumpled. Kevin, please. I don't understand what I did. You can't just cut us off like this. We're family. Family. I repeated. The word tasted bitter. You let my daughter sleep on a tile floor. You gave her a towel while your kids had blankets. You let her freeze all night and told her she was fine when she begged for warmth. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. She blinked rapidly. I didn't mean, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? The blankets were in the closet, and I thought she would be okay with the towel. I didn't think. You didn't think, I said. That's the problem. You didn't think about her at all. She's 7 years old, Rachel. She is my daughter, and you treated her like she was nothing. Tears spilled down Rachel's cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I'll apologize to Sophie. I'll make it right. It's too late. No, it's not. Her voice rose, desperate. Kevin, please. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't do this. The bank called today. They said the loan payment bounced. Our insurance is canceling. The kids' accounts are frozen. We can't afford all of this on our own. Then figure it out, I said, like everyone else does. But you've always helped us. Because I thought you cared about me. About Sophie. But you don't. You care about money. You care about comfort. You care about keeping your perfect little life intact. You never cared about us. Rachel shook her head frantically. That's not true. I love you. I love Sophie. You have a funny way of showing it. She reached out, trying to grab my arm. I stepped back. Kevin, please. I'm begging you. We'll lose the house. The kids won't have their college funds. Everything will fall apart. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and felt nothing. No sympathy, no guilt, just cold clarity. You should have thought about that before you let my daughter shiver on your floor, I said. Sorry doesn't fix it. Then what will? She shouted. What do you want from me? I leaned against the doorframe, crossed my arms. I want you to understand what it feels like to be invisible. I want you to know what it's like when the person you rely on disappears. I want you to feel a fraction of what Sophie felt that night. Rachel stared at me, her face blotchy and streaked with tears. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being fair. I stepped back and closed the door. She pounded on it 3 more times, calling my name. Then the pounding stopped. I heard her footsteps retreating down the hallway. I heard her car start. I heard her drive away. Sophie peeked out from her bedroom, her eyes wide. Daddy, was that Aunt? Yes, sweetheart. Is she okay? I walked over and knelt beside her. She will be, but we won't be seeing her for a while. Sophie nodded slowly, then hugged me. Okay. Tuesday morning, I called in sick to work. I didn't feel sick. I felt sharper than I had in years. I sat at my desk and began pulling records. I logged into every account, every portal, every service I had maintained for Rachel. I downloaded statements. I saved PDFs. I created a folder on my desktop titled 5 Years of Payments. Inside that folder, I built subfolders: mortgage, insurance, education, utilities, emergencies, miscellaneous. Each subfolder filled with documentation, bank transfers, receipts, emails where Rachel asked for help, text screenshots where I agreed. The mortgage loan was easy to track. I had wired $18,000 initially, then $10,000 more during the refinance. The monthly payments I covered for 6 months added another $9,000. Total? $37,000. I had understated it in my memory. It was worse than I thought. Home insurance ran $1,100 per year. I paid it for 5 consecutive years. That was $5,500. The educational accounts were the biggest expense. I set them up 3 years ago, depositing $1,500 per month per child. Tyler and Ella, $3,000 per month. 12 months per year, 3 years. That was $108,000. Utility bailouts were harder to calculate. They were sporadic. 100 here, 300 there. I scrolled through Venmo, PayPal, Zelle. I found 32 separate payments over 5 years. Total, $11,400. Emergency expenses were scattered. The vet bill when their dog ate chocolate, $800. The car transmission repair, $2,200. The roof leak for $1,500. The HVAC replacement, $6,800. The fence installation after a storm, $3,200. Total, $23,900. Miscellaneous included groceries, birthday gifts, holiday funds, and random requests. I stopped counting after $15,000. The grand total came to $236,800. I stared at that number for a long time. Nearly $250,000 gone. Spent on a family that let my daughter freeze because they couldn't be bothered to grab a blanket from a closet. I printed everything, page after page. I organized it into a binder with tabs and labels. I wrote a summary on the first page, including dates, amounts, and context for every expense. I highlighted patterns. I circled recurring themes. I made it impossible to deny or dismiss. Then I made copies. One for my records, one for my lawyer just in case, and one for Mom and Dad. I knew they'd get involved eventually. Mom had already left 2 voicemails asking what was going on with Rachel. Dad sent a text saying we needed to talk like adults. I ignored them both, but I knew a confrontation was coming. When it did, I wanted proof. Around noon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered. Mr. Parker, a man's voice said. Yes, this is Daniel Winters from First National Bank. I'm calling regarding a loan co-signed by you and Rachel Brennan. We've noticed the scheduled payment for this month was not received. Can you confirm your intent to continue payments? No, I said. I'm no longer making payments on that loan. There was a pause. I see. Are you aware that you're listed as a co-signer? This means you share responsibility for the outstanding balance. I am aware. I am also aware that I have no legal obligation to continue making voluntary payments. The loan is in Rachel's name. If she cannot pay, that is between her and the bank. Another pause. Understood. I will make a note in the account. However, I must inform you that if Miss Brennan defaults, this will impact your credit as well. I understand. Very well. Thank you for your time. He hung up. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. The calls were starting. The pressure was building. Rachel's world was beginning to crack. I opened my email and saw a new message from the insurance company. Subject line, cancellation confirmation. I clicked it. Effective immediately, the homeowner's policy on Rachel's address was terminated due to non-payment. Coverage ended at midnight tonight. I checked the educational savings account portal. Both accounts showed 0 deposits scheduled. The automatic transfer I had set up years ago was gone. The accounts were still active, but they were frozen in place. No new money coming in. Everything was unraveling exactly as I planned. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel conflicted. I felt free. Wednesday afternoon, Mom and Dad demanded a meeting. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I knew avoidance would only make things worse. I chose a coffee shop near my apartment. Neutral ground, public space, witnesses. They arrived 10 minutes early. Mom's face was drawn tight. Dad looked tired. They sat across from me, their hands folded on the table. Neither of them smiled. "Kevin," Mom started, her voice strained. "What is going on?" I pulled the binder from my bag and set on the table between us. "This is what's going on." Dad frowned. "What is that?" 5 years of financial support for Rachel. Every payment, every transfer, every expense I covered. It's all documented. Mom opened the binder and started flipping through pages. Her face went pale. Dad leaned over to read. I watched them process the numbers, the totals, the dates. "Kevin," Mom whispered, This is a lot of money. $236,800, I said. "Give or take." Dad looked up at me, his jaw tight. "You gave Rachel this much." "Yes." "And now you're just cutting her off?" "Yes." "Why?" Mom's voice cracked. "She's your sister. She needs you." I leaned forward. Did she need me when she let Sophie sleep on a tile floor without a blanket? Did she need me when she gave my daughter a scratchy towel while her kids had fleece blankets and sleeping bags? Did she need me when Sophie stood at her bedroom door, shivering, begging for warmth, and Rachel told her to go back downstairs? Mom's mouth opened. No sound came out. Dad's face darkened. "You didn't know about that, did you?" I continued. "Rachel didn't mention it. She didn't think it mattered because Sophie doesn't matter to her. I don't matter to her. We're just resources. I'm the wallet. Sophie is the spare kid." "That's not fair," Mom said weakly. "Rachel loves you." "No, she doesn't. She loves what I provide. There's a difference." Dad cleared his throat. "Kevin, I understand you're upset, but this is extreme. You're going to ruin her financially. She ruined my daughter emotionally," I said. "Sophie came home crying, asking if she did something bad. She thought she deserved to be treated like that. My 7-year-old thinks she's not good enough for a blanket." Mom started crying. Dad put his hand on her shoulder. He looked at me, his expression hard. "So this is revenge. You're punishing Rachel." "No, I'm setting boundaries. I'm stopping a pattern that should have ended years ago." "You're being selfish." "Good," I said. "Maybe it's time I was." Dad stood up abruptly. "We didn't raise you to turn your back on family. You raised me to be invisible," I said. "You raised me to be the backup plan. You raised me to sacrifice everything so Rachel could have everything. And I did for years. But I'm done." "Then we're done," Dad said coldly. "If you go through with this, don't expect us to support you." "I don't," I said. "I never did." He grabbed Mom's arm and pulled her to her feet. She looked back at me, tears streaming down her face. "Kevin, please don't do this. We can fix this as a family." "No, we can't," I said, "because we were never a family. We were a hierarchy, and I was always at the bottom." They left. I sat there alone, staring at the binder. A barista walked by and asked if I needed anything. I shook my head. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. Our insurance is gone. I don't know what to do." Another text. "Tom is furious. He says this is all my fault." Another. "The kids are asking why their accounts are empty. I don't know what to tell them." I didn't reply. 20 minutes later, another text. "Please, Kevin, I'm begging you. I'll do anything." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed one sentence. "You had a chance to do the right thing. You chose a blanket." I hit send and turned off my phone. That evening, I picked Sophie up from school. She ran to me, her backpack bouncing. She asked if we could get ice cream. I said yes. We went to her favorite shop and sat outside, eating cones in the fading sunlight. She looked at me with bright eyes and said, "Daddy, I'm happy." "Me too, sweetheart. Are we going back to Annie's house?" "No." She nodded, licking her ice cream. "Good. I like it better here." I smiled. For the first time in days, it felt real. 1 month passed. I didn't hear from Rachel again. Mom and Dad stopped calling after the second week. I heard through a mutual friend that Rachel and Tom put the house on the market. They were downsizing, moving to a smaller rental. The kids switched schools. I felt no satisfaction in their collapse. I felt no guilt, either. I just felt neutral, like I had closed a chapter in a book I never wanted to read in the first place. Sophie thrived without the constant expectation of family visits. We built our own routines. Saturday mornings became pancake mornings. Sunday afternoons were library trips. Evenings were puzzles and bedtime stories. She stopped asking about Rachel. She stopped mentioning Tyler and Ella. She was content. I enrolled her in art classes. She wanted to learn watercolor painting. The classes cost $80 a month. I could afford it now. Without the constant drain of supporting Rachel, my budget opened up. I had breathing room. I had choices. One evening, Sophie and I sat on the apartment balcony, watching the sunset. She leaned against me, holding a sketchbook. She had drawn a picture of the two of us standing in front of a house with a big tree in the yard. "Is that our house?" I asked. "Not yet," she said. "But maybe someday." I kissed the top of her head. "Maybe someday." She flipped to a new page and started drawing again. I watched her work, her small hands moving the pencil with care. She was so focused, so calm, so much stronger than I gave her credit for. "Daddy," she said without looking up. "Yeah. Do you think Annie is mad at us?" I considered the question. "Probably. Do you think she will say sorry?" "I don't know." Sophie nodded, still drawing. "That's okay. I don't need her to." I blinked, surprised. "You don't?" "No, because I have you, and that is enough." My throat tightened. I pulled her close and held her for a long time. She didn't pull away. She just leaned into me, her pencil still moving across the page. Later that night, after Sophie went to bed, I sat at my desk and opened the binder one last time. I flipped through the pages, reading the summaries, looking at the numbers. It was surreal how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed without question. I thought about who I was a year ago. The guy who said yes to everything. The guy who believed being dependable meant being indispensable. The guy who thought love was measured in payments and support. I was not that guy anymore. I closed the binder and put it in a drawer. I didn't need it anymore. It served its purpose. It was proof. It was validation. But it was not my identity. My identity was sitting in the next room, asleep under 3 blankets, dreaming about houses with big trees and art classes and Saturday morning pancakes. I turned off the desk lamp and walked to Sophie's room. She was curled up with her stuffed rabbit, her breathing soft and even. I adjusted her blanket, making sure she was warm. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you, sweetheart." She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. I left her room and stood in the hallway for a moment, looking around our small apartment. It wasn't much. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I felt whole. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee. I sat on the balcony, watching the sun rise over the city. The air was cool and crisp. Birds chirped in the trees below. The world felt open. Sophie would wake soon. We would make breakfast together. We would laugh. We would plan our day. And somewhere, miles away, Rachel would wake up in her smaller house, facing her smaller life, wondering what went wrong. But that was not my problem anymore. I took a sip of coffee and smiled.